Okay, Shalom. Right, I hope I'm able to get this video out. I have struggled all day. So here goes. This is not my first attempt. Codename Dry Land, Finding Our Way Home. This lesson, the Gematria, the wisdom, the revelation in this lesson is awesome. No wonder I've struggled to get it out. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this particular Zohar. Zohar, what is his name? Let's go and have a look because it's awesome. Vayak'hel, verse 43. Rabbi Shimon opened the discussion with, who has ascended up to heaven and come down again? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has bound the waters in a garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? And what is his son's name, if you can tell? So that's from Mishlei 34, which is Proverbs 34. We explained this verse together with its many interpretations. It is all said about the Holy One, blessed be he, which is all. And we learned what is his name and what is his son's name, if you can tell. That this is the Holy One, blessed be he. What is his name? Yud Hei Vav Hei. And the name of his son, Yisrael. As it is written, Yisrael is my son, my firstborn. So that's from Shemot 4:22, Exodus 4:22. And we already talked about it, and we explained that who has ascended up to heaven refers to Moshe, as it is written, and he said to Moshe, come up to Hashem. So that's from Shemot, Exodus 24:1. Phenomenal gematria now that's going to link us back to the dry land, the whole concept of dry land. Some of this gematria we've already looked at in last lesson. We're going to go over it to refresh our memory. This is the new stuff. Yud Hei Vav is 26 and Yisrael is 541. So we get this from here. What is his name? What is the name of his son? That comes to 567, which is a significant number related to Yosef. We'll be looking at that in another slide. The ordinal of that, 26 and 64, is 90, which is exactly the same as Melech, king. 567, the regular plus the ordinal, is 657. As we can see, that is Joshua ben Nun, an appellation of Mashiach ben Yosef. And I'm just stressing this because there's lots of connection to Mashiach ben Yosef here. And then we've got here, haven't we? So we've talked about Yud Hei Vav Hei and Yisrael, his son, and then Moshe, who is the Mashiach of Yud Hei Vav Hei. So we've got Moshe, 345, plus ordinal 39, comes to 384, which is exactly the same as the Mashiach of Yud Hei Vav Hei. The Mashiach of Yud Hei Vav Hei is a phrase that we find within the Tanakh. Okay, and this is the true revelation of Mashiach, that is to be found in the mind of God, that is revealed to us through the Torah, as opposed to all the exilic false messiahs that we have got during exile, that really prevent the revelation of the Mashiach as revealed in the Torah of Yud Hei Vav Hei. We're going to come across how this is, there's unholy forces opposite this very holy union, okay, between Moshe, Yisrael, all Yisrael, and Yud Hei Vav Hei. So if we add Moshe and we add Yisrael and Yud Hei Vav Hei and Yisrael together, regular and ordinal of all, it comes to 1041, which is 3 times 347. Both these numbers are very significant. The ordinal of Yud Hei Vav Hei and Yisrael and Moshe comes to Mashiach ben Ephraim, the ordinal of Mashiach ben Ephraim, 129. So wherever you look, you've got this wonderful revelation of, because that's an appellation for Mashiach ben Yosef as well. Okay, so incorporated in all this union is as well the hidden secret inner dimension of the Torah, which is Mashiach ben Yosef. So we've got this. This is how it's connected to the whole concept of the dry land. And when we see that this union here between Yud Hei Vav Hei, Yisrael and Moshe, which is so significant, is connected to this concept of the dry land, and God called the dry land earth, then we've got to start to wonder what that dry land is. What does that dry land represent then? If this is so important, and we know that we needed to go across on dry land from exile to redemption. So that also comes to 1041, which is 3 times 347. This is a significant number. This is the average of all these three names. Yud Hei Vav Hei, Yisrael and Moshe, 347. Okay. This has got an ordinal of 186, which we'll come across later. That is the square ordinal of Yud Hei Vav Hei. And and it's also the square ordinal of Adam, and it's also the regular ordinal of YHWH. We will see that later. This word here, leyabosha, to the dry land, and God called to the dry land, or for the dry land, Eretz. Okay, leyabosha. That comes to 347, which is exactly the same as, well, 3 times 347 is the 1041, which is also this union between Yud Hei Vav Hei, Yisrael and Moshe. So a significant number. The dry land is a very significant number. If we add 50 to it, and 50 is the number for the Jubilee, the Yovel, it's also related to Bina, the 50 gates of understanding. So, and Jubilee is also related to Bina. And Shavuot, the 50th day. All kinds of wonderful things like that. And the 50th gate of understanding is related to the concept of why the righteous suffer. And this is very much related to Mashiach ben Yosef, who is the righteous one, Yosef, who's called righteous, suffering with us in exile, to accomplish that Yud Hei Vav Hei wills for him to accomplish. So add them together, come to 397, which is the concept of the false Messiah that is written in Aramaic in the New Testament. This is the number 73, which is Chochmah. Okay, so the false Messiah tries to prevent a revelation of Chochmah. What Chochmah? The Chochmah that we talked about last lesson, that's hidden in the darkness, in the Gevurah, hidden in the exile with us, that we have to get out. Okay, and we get that out through the power of Chesed, the light of Chassidim, to draw it out of the darkness, to transform that darkness from concealment into revelation. If we add these two numbers together, they come to 470. 470 is Amalek filled out to the first spelling, how each letter sounds. So, Ayin, Mem, Lamed, Kuf, spelt out. 470 that comes to. So we're dealing with very, very powerful forces. The force of the false Mashiach and Amalek. Then we've got this phenomena. Not only is this dry land related to the concept of the false Messiah, it's also related to the concept of the anti-Messiah to be found within in Yehuda. Judaism, Armilos. This is written about quite a lot in the book called Torah by Vilna Gaon. So that comes to 347. Also, an ordinal of 77. We're going to be looking at that number. And together they come to 424, which is the regular of Mashiach ben David, when David is spelled Daleth Vav Daleth. The 77 is Yaakov rectified when he includes the Vav. What does that Vav symbolize? Od Yosef Chai, Yosef is still alive. And then David rectified. What does the additional Yud of David's name represent? It represents the wisdom that we're talking about that's hidden in the darkness. We spoke about this in last lesson also. Okay, we need to draw that out with the light of Chassidim. Together, however, those two come to 77. So this is a unity between heaven and earth. When heaven is fully empowered with the truth, when Yaakov is fully empowered with the truth, Od Yosef Chai, he can then overcome the force of Esav and transform Esav from chaos into Shalom, subdue Esav, which is really synonymous with that evil inclination, the outer nations, and it needs transforming from Esav to Shalom. We'll be looking at that very soon. So David rectified is the whole process of pulling all the wisdom out regarding that concept of Od Yosef Chai, Yosef is still alive. All the wisdom, all the revelation of the name Yud Hei Vav Hei that has occurred, has occurred, all the effort that we have made to draw out and battle those forces of the anti-Messiah, the false Messiah, Amalek and exile, in order to draw that wisdom out, that Chochmah. And that becomes integral part of who David is. This is earth, heaven and earth, united as one So we are creating the home for Yud Hei Vav Hei to dwell down here on earth as he is in heaven, to be king on earth as he is in heaven. So that is 77 for those two. It's also related to Chaya, because Chava changes to Chaya. The Vav becomes a Yud. Okay, of Chava becomes Chaya. And that's a little bit like the Yud has to extend down into earth for the name Yud Hei Vav Hei to be joined, to be fully united. But at some point that name will change to Yud Hei, and the Yud Vav will be completely and totally never separated, just as Yud Hei is never separated. This is complicated Kabbalistic stuff, but the name will change. It will change from a Vav to a Yud. So there's all kinds of connections up to Chaya changing from her Vav into a Yud. And also David is, the Mashiach ben David comes at the soul level of Chaya, the mother of all living. It's the rectified vessel, if you like, the rectified earth. So that Yud Hei Vav Hei can dwell with us down here below. Yot Moshe is the Mashiach. 77, the ordinal of that. The ordinal Aleph, which stands for Lufo Shel Olam, is also the different aspects of the Aleph, is also connected to a revelation of the Mashiach as well. And then Ha'ivrim, the Mispagdal ordinal of Ha'ivrim, the Hebrews, comes to 77. And all these have got to work together. And as we can see, Amlus is against all of these. Is against the unity and the new heaven, the unity of heaven and earth, is against the truth being given over to Yaakov, is against the wisdom being drawn out of exile and empowering David, rectifying the divine feminine, or rectifying the last letter here of the name Yod Hei Vav Hei and bringing it into unity with the Vav. All kinds of things, the rectification of Chava and Adam. Okay, all these wonderful things that Armilos is opposed to. These are massive forces of evil that we've got to contend with. And we can see it's all opposite this concept of the dry land, because we have to reveal the dry land, know what it is and reveal it. So we've got this concept of the dry land. This is the concept that's found in Exodus. We've got this concept here that we find in Genesis and also in Psalms. And this is on the dry land. B'yobosha, dry land, 319 regular, 40 ordinally. And that comes to 359, which is opposite Satan. So we know Satan is the accuser, and he stands opposite this whole phenomena of the dry land. And we left exile into redemption on dry land. B'yobosha. So as what I'm trying to point out is that there's phenomenal evil forces that that contrast this revelation of what the dry land is. Yet we need that dry land revealing. We've got to contend with all these incredibly powerful forces to draw that wisdom and light out, that revelation out, transform this darkness into revelation. He turned the sea into dry land. In the river they crossed by foot. There we rejoiced with him. Psalm 66:6. And you've got this Liyobosha. You've got the 666 there as well, aren't you? So this is wholly opposite that. You wanting to go wholly opposite Liyobosha, just like what we've got up here. That's opposite the false Messiah and the anti-Messiah. We're wanting wholly. So we've got to attach to things like this. This Tehillim is telling us, revealing great things to us. Right, so this is a whole concept of Esav being transformed, the evil inclination being transformed from chaos into Shalom, so that we've got a home down here in physical reality for Yod Hei Vav Hei to dwell with us, that to be Shalom Bayit, peace in the home. The very first letter of the Torah is really to remind us that Yod Hei Vav Hei's whole purpose of creation, he created it so that he would dwell with us in it. There will be no separation from heaven and earth. And this is what we've got. We've got a work to do. We are co-creators in helping to establish that Shalom that allows him to come and dwell with us, that allows earth to be a home for him. Peace in the home. And this is all accomplished through Yesod. You know, there's a great mystery in that, the whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, the whole concept of Yosef and righteousness, you know, and all the purity associated with Yosef. So Esav is 376. Shalom, peace, is also 376. Where do we get our Shalom from? We get it from toiling against the forces of Esav and transforming them from chaos into Shalom. It's a work. We've also got this concept of Yonah, what means dove, the sign of the peace, the sign of peace. It's actually, this bracelet that I've got is from the island of Iona. It was made on the island of Iona because I used to live very close to that and visited it very often. So I don't really, you know, I don't identify myself as a Christian, but I obviously have a lot of strong connections to the whole concept of Iona. Iona is named after the dove Iona, and also Saint Columbus, Saint Columba, his name in Latin means dove, and also it was called like Colmcille, and that also means dove. Okay, so you've got these very big connections, and like I say, this is the Iona stone. It's one of the oldest stones in the world, not particularly the marble, but one of the oldest stones in the world outcrops in Iona. It's one of the most ancient stones of all creation outcrops there, and this is another one of the stones, the green stone, the marble that it's called. So it's all connected to Iona. What's this all about then? The sign that Mashiach ben Yosef gave to the wicked and adulterous generation, which is our generation. We're wicked because we don't do the will of Yud Hei Vav Hei, and we're wicked because we do anything other than stay faithful to our mission and to the revelation that's been revealed to us. We're all guilty, and to this generation that we have become, the Yonah is a dove. Okay, the Yonah is a dove. It's very important. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a sign of peace, but it's the whole concept of Yonah to be found within the Tanakh and within the Torah. Okay, there's lots of revelation regarding the concept of the Yonah in the Torah even, and also in the New Testament. There's a lot of wisdom. You know, the whole descent of the dove upon Yeshua, for example, there's a lot of significance and meaning in that. When we subdue our inner evil inclination for evil, our inner Esav, our inner nations, or outer nations I should say, to the side of good, to our inner Yaakov, Yisrael, it is a transformation into Shalom. Shalom is the only vessel that can contain a blessing. The last statement in the last Mishnah, in the last tractate in Shaz, Scene 3:12, tells us that the only vessel God could use to contain all his blessings for peace for Israel is Shalom. The author of this statement, Rabbi Shimon ber Chalafta, bases this idea on Psalms 29:11. God will bless his nation with Shalom. Accordingly, the final bracha of Shemona Esrei is for peace, which is the vessel that contains all the other blessings. Rabbi Jack Abramowitz from outorah.org stated that last little bit. Going back to Iona, by the way, because I'm just going to mention it, it's a beautiful island if ever you get a chance to go, but it's kind of where Christianity was birthed within Scotland, certainly, and it did have an impact in the rest of the UK and certain parts of Europe and stuff like that, going back a long time. Very ancient place is Iona. And one of the things about Saint Columba is that he never departed from the Jewish festivals. He always upheld the Jewish Shabbat, and he always upheld the Jewish festivals, and he was opposed to Rome as a consequence. And it's just worth bearing in mind that, you know, he was there was a lot about him that was in opposition to Rome and the Roman way of doing things, certainly the Roman calendar. And I read that a long time ago. I'm quite shocked to hear that he actually kept the Shabbat, or he was definitely pro the Jewish festivals and the Jewish calendar, you know. So it's worth bearing in mind, sometimes we're going to have to look back in our history sometimes for the answers in order for us to go forward. There's a lot hidden. There's a lot been hidden and suppressed from us that we've now to start to try and attach to, in order to empower us with all the truth that's been hidden in all this darkness of Christianity, in order to bring unity between our Jewish brothers and sisters. There's a lot of history involved with that. The whole Kuldi church and things like that. There's a lot that we should be woken up to and start to appreciate. So let's have a look at this, because this is phenomenal, absolutely wonderful. Who ascended to heaven and descended? Who gathered wind in his fists? Who wrapped the waters in a garment? Who established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is the name of his son, if you know? Proverbs 34. Right, let's have a look at this. This is so beautiful, absolutely wonderful stuff. So we've got this phrase, who has ascended into heaven and descended, and we're just told in the Zohar Moshe did. Moshe's umbrella term for Mashiach. Okay, so who has ascended into heaven and descended? 153 ordinally. The highlighted letters spell from Esav, Esav. Okay. It's also connected to the phrase from the age of 20 and above. Okay. Which I'm not going to go into that in this lesson, but there must be a significance why. So Esav, it comes to an ordinal of 56, which is exactly the same ordinal as Teshuvah, Teshuvah. We are in a process of return. It's not just us that has got to return. Yeshua has been sold into Edomite captivity, and he needs to be returned from this place also. Okay. It's got a regular of 765, which is also 5 times 153. So this is a very significant number. So the two together come to, and that's the 153, and the 765 comes to 918, which is 6 times 153. Okay. If we take this phrase and in highlight from the word who, which is me, mem yod, me. If we take the yod instead of the mem, we get yod aleph shin vav, which rearranged to spell Yeshua. Okay, so who has ascended into heaven and descended? Yeshua. Comes to 153. Now 153 we know from the story of the parable of the story of the 153 fishes. If you go try and find what these 153 fishes mean in Christianity, it will tell you it's a mystery. And very few commentators have tried to decipher this code. Jerome has said something about it to link up to certain phrases from Ezekiel. But it's classed as a mystery. They don't know what this 153 is. Let's see if we can find out what this 153 is. Because Yeshua also ascended into heaven and descended. And it's the story of the 153 fishes that point this out most clearly. Where did he descend to? He descended into Esav. He descended into the evil inclination. He descended into Edom, Rome. That's where he was. He was sold. He was sold by his own brothers, just as Joseph was sold. Okay, 153. But it's all the will of Yud Hei Vav Hei for a great salvation. So the life of Moshe was 120 years. The life of Yeshua was 33 years. So that comes to 153. We get the union again between the aspect of Mashiach, that is Moshe, the aspect of Mashiach, that is Mashiach ben Yosef. They need uniting together as one in order to reveal Mashiach ben David. And then we've got this phenomena, which is so relevant to us today because we've been suffering this call out now. Also, korona gam. The initial letters, if you want to write 153 in Hebrew, there is no numerals. You use letters. What letters? You use 100, 50 and 3. So, Kof, Nun, Gimel is 153 in Hebrew, and that is how you would write 153. And it's also the initial letters of these three words. Call out now. For what? What do we call out? We call out now. What's the sign? Corona. The coronavirus, we talked about this last lesson, how we're up against the forces of the Erev Rav, the initial letters of the Erev Rav, the 5 types of Erev Rav, the and spell Negara, Nephalim, Rephaim, Anakim, Nega, Nephalim, Gibborim, Anakim, Rephaim, and Amalekim. They spell Negara, evil plague. So when are we to call out to get, and it's the Erev Rav and the Edomites that keep Yeshua suppressed in this slavery, this Edomite slavery. When do we call out then? When the whole world is starting to suffer from the coronavirus, the corona gam, that's when we've got to call out now. Also, to bring him out from Esav, met Esav, from Esav. He needs redeeming, he needs a pidyon nefesh or a pidyon haben, redemption of the firstborn son. 71 is Yonah. 82 is the ordinal for Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, together, this, which is the regular and ordinal, plus the Misbar Gadol regular and ordinal, comes to 1,503. You can see it's the same digits as 153. Okay. You shall give truth to Yaakov. So what truth? Od Yosef Chai. But Yosef is still alive. Where is he alive then? Well, he's stuck in Esav, the place where he was sold, just like Yosef was stuck in Egypt, the place he'd been sold to. So you give truth to Yosef, to Yaakov, Od Yosef Chai. 1,503. Exactly the same as call out now. It's got 153 ordinals, so we know exactly what it's connected to. The truth is connected to a revelation of the one who ascended into heaven and descended. So that includes both Moshe and Yeshua HaMashiach. Together they add to 1,656, which is 8 times 207, 8 times light. Or. And then we've got this, the ordinal of that, which is 5 times 153, is he sent Moshe his servant, Shelach Moshe Avdo, 765. It's phenomenal stuff. What the initial letters? Shema, Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So there's all powerful stuff there. Let's just read this through to remind us that when did this incident with 153 fishes occur? As we can see, it's highly Kabbalistic, but it's also highly, highly prophetic. Yeshua told them, bring some of the fish you have just caught. I haven't wrote all of it. I haven't put all of it down, just the main bit. So Simon Peter went abroad and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153, but even with so many, the net was not torn. Okay, his gathering is in. It's all symbolic. There's 153 fishes trapped that need to be redeemed. Esav. You know, he's gone in for a reason to get us out, and also, to bring out the soul of Mashiach. There's aspects of the soul of Moshe trapped in Erev Rav within Judaism. There's aspects of the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef. It's the same soul of Mashiach, just different levels, trapped within the house of Yosef, the lost house of Yosef within Christianity. We need bringing out. The net was not torn, thankfully. Come have breakfast, Yeshua said to them. None of the disciples dared to ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord, the Master. Yeshua came and took the bread and gave it to them, and he did the same with the fish. This was now the third time that Yeshua appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. That's from John 21. So we can see he was giving them a coded message. Just as he was about to go into Esav, he was giving them a coded message. At the right time, I'm going now into the Edomite exile. My soul has got to descend. I've been into heaven. He'd been crucified, he'd ascended up to heaven, and now he was on his way down. Just as Moshe had gone up to heaven to receive the tablets, and then he came down. And we know what happened with the Erev Rav and everything like that. He had to descend into Edom, because Yosef, the lost house of Yosef, was hidden there in that darkness, and he went in to get them, just as Moshe went into the Erev Rav to get the hidden sparks of holiness out. But it's all coded up now. It's time to bring him out. We've had the sign. The coronavirus is the sign. It's time to call him out. Call out now also. And plus Gam is related to Esav, because Gam is 43 ordinarily. Well, it's 43 regularly, and that's exactly the same as the ordinal of Esav. Esav is ordinally 43. And also Esav cried to his father, bless me also, Father, and he said this twice. You know, there is a blessing given over to Esav when Esav's transformed to Shalom. He will be the home that houses a revelation of Yud Hei Vav Hei here on earth. The Shalom that can contain that Yud Hei Vav Hei desires to bestow. That's his true blessing. The Torah is a blueprint for the global, the cosmic level, the macrocosmic level of revelation of what those words are was in the Torah, for all of creation to become, all of physicality to be transformed into a home for the Holy One, blessed be He. Okay, let's have a look at something else more wonderful. Okay, so here we are, look, but Joseph said to them, don't be afraid, for am I instead of God? So let's see how this is connected to what we've been looking at. Here we've got Ki hatachath. Remember this hatachath in place of tachath beno, in place of his son, but also it means below. Yod Hei Vav Hei desires to dwell below tachath. Okay, it can mean below and it can mean in place of. Because am I in place of Elohim? It's got a regular of 990, I do believe, and it's got an ordinal of 144. Together they come to 1134, which is 2 times 567. So that's related to the unity between Yud Hei Vav Hei and Yisrael. Okay, so that's why I've included it. Why else have I included it? Well, because Joseph was sold to his brothers, but he understood that this sold by his brothers into slavery, but he understood it was for an overall salvation. Yeshua had to be sold. Why? Because the lost house of Joseph, through their own folly and rebellion against Yod Hei Vav Hei, found themselves subject to the exile of Rome. They was trapped in Rome. They were trapped in the nations. They needed getting out. Yod Hei Vav Hei had a plan of redemption. It included Mashiach ben Yosef going in after them. Okay, so we've got this situation. We've already looked at those numbers. Just to point out, though, that this verse, we're talking about Yosef. This is a unity between Yosef and Moshe that's always got to occur. Why? Because they're the same soul. It's the soul of Mashiach, just at different levels. Moshe is the level of Neshama. Yeshua at the level of Yechida. When David is revealed, it will be at the level of Chaya, the one in between, that unites them both together. So Moshe is 345, and Yeshua is at the level of Yechida, which is connected to self-sacrifice. And that's exactly what he did. Well, he was put to death by the Sanhedrin. He was actually, he begged to not be, he begged not to die. He begged and sweat blood. He didn't want to go, and he certainly didn't want to descend into Erev Rav, into Edomite exile. But he said, you know, if the will of Yod Hei Vav Hei, and it was the will of Yod Hei Vav Hei. And Ramchal pointed out that the Mashiach is distinguished by those who don't desire to descend. You know, Shabbatai Tzvi came, was a false Messiah, but he willed to descend for the sake of ascent. Moshe begged and pleaded. Yeshua begged and pleaded. They didn't want to face exile. They wanted to redeem without having to go through the process of exile, but it wasn't the will of Yod Hei Vav Hei. Why? Because we've got this here lot. Front and back you have formed me. This is from Psalm 139:5. It's a beautiful psalm, by the way. It's got a regular and a ordinal that come to 1276. It's got a Mispar Gadol and a Mispar Gadol ordinal that add up to 1847. If you add those two together, come to 3123, which is 3 times 1041. So connected back to that. Okay, and the whole concept of the dry land. It's also got 333, which is, I think, the first appearance of 333. I'm not 100% sure, but it's certainly the word and subdue. So we're to come into this earth and subdue it. So that word and subdue it comes to 333. We've got to subdue the forces of Esav, the forces of chaos, and we've got to get them in the right order. Sometimes when we're in exile, it's the chaotic forces that we've got at the front of us. We've got to subdue them so that they're at the back in the right place, because fighting all these forces of evil, experiencing exile, it forms us, but it shouldn't be what forms us in front. It should be what forms us from behind. We've got to get everything in the right order, because what we've got to have before us, we've got to have Yud Hei Vav Hei before us. We've got to be connected to the whole concept of Yisrael, the whole tribes of Israel, not just Yehuda or not just Yosef, but united Yisrael, Yud Hei Vav Hei and Moshe. There's what's got to be in front. What's got to be behind then? All the struggle that we have struggled with, all the forces of Esav, in order to subdue this entire creation to Shalom, from chaos to Shalom, so it can be a home for our Father in heaven to dwell down here with us, to be King of kings over kings down here as he is in heaven, for his oneness to be revealed instead of the duality that we all experience. 558, I do believe, is Esav plus Yaakov. Just let me figure that one out. Yeah, there, I've just pulled it up, look. Oh, that should be a Vav, not a bet. I will correct it. It's Esav and Yaakov, but Esav is 376 plus Yaakov 182 comes to 558. Okay, it's just spelt wrong there. I will change that at some point. Okay, so as we can see, that's the union again between Esav and Yaakov, between Israel and the nations. Yud Hei Vav Hei does not desire just to be king over Israel; he desires to be king over the nations also. It's like king of heaven and of earth, and it's the unity of the vessels and the light. There's so much involved, body and soul. Yaakov is the soul, and it's the union of the good inclination and the bad inclination, front and back. You have formed me. As long as we've got the influence of the evil inclination behind me, we can't ignore it altogether, because nothing gets accomplished without the evil inclination. There's, well, not nothing, but there's a lot that's necessary to be accomplished, and we need to use the evil inclination, the force of the evil inclination, in order to do this. So that's why Mashiach ben Yosef is descended into the evil inclination in order to overwhelm it and overcome it. So there's got to be unity between Israel and the nations, between body and soul, because a soul without a body is a poltergeist. You've got to take dominion over your own body. You've got to be able to subdue it to the side of holy, to get it to serve the will of Yaakov, not Yaakov have to serve the will of Esav. So front and back you have found me. We want Yud Hei Vav Hei, the whole united tribe of Israel, and the whole concept of Moshe, which is our rectified da'ath. This is our da'ath that has fallen with the sin of Adam, our knowledge of God that fell when we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This all needs rectifying. Moshe is the rectification of our supernal da'ath. All connected and all wonderful. Right, so again we've got the dry land. We've already gone through this, haven't we? Yeah. So I'm just showing it how it's connected. And we've got the 186. What is the 186? What is this dry land? And God called the dry land earth. It's really a revelation of the name Yud Hei Vav Hei, the tree of life. It's rectified Adam, that stands for Adam, David and Mashiach. 186. It's Eliyahu Hanavi, regular and ordinal. Wonderful stuff. It's also this, which is connected to a revelation of Moshe. Ma Sheheya Kavar Nikra Shemot. What was its name was already called, and this is connected to a concept that the rabbis say points to prove that Moshe is the Mashiach that will come again. What was is what will be. I can't go into that now, but it comes to 186, and it's basically a revelation that Moshe was the first redeemer, Moshe will be the last redeemer. Okay, Moshe is the Mashiach of Yud Hei Vav Hei. So you could say Mashiach came the first time through Moshe. Mashiach came with Yeshua. We know Yeshua said we've got to come again. Mashiach will come again, and it's all one soul of the Mashiach of Yud Hei Vav Hei. We just have to discern this from the lies that we've inherited regarding the concept of Mashiach, the false Messiah, the Armelos, Satan. And then we've got this, the light of Mashiach ben Yosef, which has got a Mispah Gadol ordinal of 186. So this is the soul, that Yechida, isn't it? This is the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef. So Mashiach ben Yosef incarnated in the life of Yeshua, but then his soul is a super soul, the light of Mashiach ben Yosef. This is part of the perfect light of Adam that never fell. Okay, so he's part of an upper perfection, an upper light that's connected to all these concepts. Eliyahu Hanavi, Adam and Yud Hei Vav Hei. Sorry, and the dry land. Also 998, which is Yaakov rectified. So when Yaakov includes that truth, Od Yosef Chai, okay, that's the square ordinal, the regular and the ordinal. Come to 998, the ordinal is the same as Yeshua, the ordinal of Yeshua. So what is Yaakov rectified? It has to include the light of Mashiach ben Yosef, the truth, the truth. O shepherd of Israel, hearken. Okay, 894 plus 147, which is the years of it's the years of Yaakov, isn't it? And that's 10 times the years of Yaakov. We saw how the years of Moshe and the years of Yeshua added up. This is now the years of Yaakov. So that comes to 1041. So we see the shepherd of Israel, the whole concept. We're waiting for David, the one shepherd over all, aren't we? Connected to the revelation of the dry land. It's connected to all this. 894, 2 times 447, 2 times YHWH and truth. This is one of the 13 principles of the 13 attributes of mercy. YHWH. This is the and truth revealed to Moshe at the level of Zer and Pin, at the level of Moshe within the letter of the Torah. The name of Yod Hei Vav Hei, the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed to Moshe when Moshe's in the cleft of the rock. You know, it's chesed ve'emet, kindness and truth. Okay, so they're one of that, and truth is one of the 13 principles of mercy. The 13 principle of mercy revealed at the level of Mashiach ben Yosef, the level of Keter in the book of Micah, is titain emet liYaakov, and give truth to Yaakov, what we've just been looking at. Okay, that's the 13th attribute of mercy that's directly related, 13th attribute of mercy that's a revelation of the name Yod Hei Vav Hei that's directly related to this revelation that we can see is related to, O shepherd of Israel, hearken. That's related to the dry land and everything we've talked about, all this wonderful stuff. And then we've already looked at these numbers, haven't we? To the dry land and army loss, just refreshing them again. But here we've got Od Yosef Chai. Yosef is still alive. This is the truth that's got to give over to Yaakov. Comes to 254, which is the same as Chamor, donkey, I think. And 92 ordinally. So this is Mashiach ben Dawid rectified. What, riding on his donkey. 300 riding on his Esav. 346 plus a kalel for alufo shalom, because this has been hidden. And Yod Hei Vav Hei hides in the Aleph. 1 kalel, so that's 347. And I talked about this last lesson. 3 appellations for the Mashiach is Mashiach ben Dawid rectified with additional Yod. 92, as we can see, exactly the same. Mashiach ben Yosef spelt with an additional Yod. In Tanakh, in the Torah, his name is never spelt with a Yod, but Yosef is also a verb, and the verb form of Yosef is spelt on occasions within the Tanakh with an additional Yod, and it's also spelt with an additional Yod in verses where you've got the rectified David really very close to each other. The word Yosef and David are very close to each other, and also the word Od. I went through that in the last lesson, I think it was. Spelt with an additional Yod, the additional Yosef gets 2 portions. And Mashiach ben Ephraim, it also comes to 347. So a revelation of Mashiach is a revelation of the dry land, because the revelation of the Mashiach reveals the name and authority and sovereignty and oneness of Yud Hei Vav Hei, the true Mashiach that restores our da'ath, supernal da'ath, is a revelation of the name Yud Hei Vav Hei ultimately, and his sovereignty and authority and unity. There's only him and nothing else beside him. Okay, but it takes a long time for us to get to that state, and like I say, we've got to wrestle with all the forces of the evil inclination, Amalek, false messiah, Armelos, get them in the right order, get them behind, and have it in front of us, Yud Hei Vav Hei, Yisrael and Moshe, corrected da'ath. This is incredible. So we've got, indeed he bore our illnesses and our pains, he carried them, yet we accounted him as plagued, smitten by God and oppressed. So we've got the nega, the nagua, the plagued. We should have, the Erev Rav is called nega ra. Yet the one, Mashiach ben Yosef, is suffering like one that's been plagued with this, it's similar letters, nega, for plague. He's been plagued, smitten by God and oppressed. But as we can see, accounted him as plagued, smitten by God and oppressed is 1041. We have to reveal that dry land by revealing who it was that was accounted him plagued, smitten by God and oppressed, because there's a very great reason why Mashiach ben Yosef had to suffer in exile with us. He has suffered to prevent us from falling to the 50th level of impurity. He has carried our sicknesses, he has borne our illnesses and our pains. He carried them as much as we have suffered in this Edomite exile. The house of Yosef has suffered. It suffered being subject to Rome. Even the history of Christianity, look at it, the amount of murder that's gone on through the Vatican Church, through Roman influences against believing Christians. It's horrific. This is the lost house of Yosef. But at the same time, Yosef has suffered. Mashiach ben Yosef has borne our illnesses and our pains all through these 2,000 years of history to bring us to that point where we will be able to reveal the truth, O Yosef Chai, and in doing so a revelation of the unity and sovereignty and absolute oneness of the name Yud Hei Vav Hei. So we can see that is connected to this revelation and all that we've already seen. It's also connected to this concept, sowed in the Peshat, the secret, the literal meaning of the Torah by the Vilna Gaon. Okay, so without the Peshat is the letter He, the Sod is the Yud. Okay, so we need the Yud, that's the extra Yud in David, the wisdom, the inner secret meaning of the Torah. They've got to toil to reveal through this horrific exile that we've all been exposed to, the secret meaning that is Mashiach ben Yosef, the light of Mashiach ben Yosef that's descended into exile with us, was sold into Roman slavery, captivity. The Vilna Gaon said, without the secret meaning of the Torah, there is no literal meaning of the Torah. It's defective without secret hidden meaning of the Torah. So unless we get that secret out that's trapped in this dark exile, we have no true literal meaning of the Torah. That means the whole name of Yod Hei Vav Hei is diminished. It's exiled without the secret inner meaning of the Torah. And it's like David without the Vav, without the Yud in his name, not fully rectified. He's not risen up to have full union with heaven. And it's connected to a revelation of Yosef. So we've got this. This is phenomenal. Okay. And we're going to see down here that the entire regular plus the entire the entire regular and ordinal of the different ways we spell out secret, sod, comes to 2082, which is 2 times 1041. So we know we need the secret meaning of the Torah, and we know the one who's accounted as plagued, smitten by God and oppressed is also associated with this secret inner meaning of the Torah, which is none other than Mashiach ben Yosef. Why do we know? Because Vilna Gaon told us, Smech Vav Daleth, Sod spelt out as it sounds, each letter, the first filling is 566, which is exactly the same as Mashiach ben Yosef. It's also 89 ordinally, which is exactly the same ordinal as YHWH. He had to descend into the YHWH, which is Edom, which is Esav, which is the nations. In order to overpower it, it's the angel of death. To overpower it. Okay? So if Vav can be filled 3 different ways. So Sod can be filled 3 different ways. This is Moshe. This is Mashiach ben Yosef. This is Mashiach ben David. And if we add them all, regular and ordinal, together, along with the regular and ordinal of the spelling out of secret, Sod, down here, look, 1987 is the 3 spellings out of Sod, 655, 657 and 675. Add them all together, 1987. If we add the 95, which is Hamelech, the king, the regular and ordinal, and you've got here, what's that? 70 is the 70 nations that need to be subdued. If we add them together, we've got that number which is connected up. Okay, and this is its Chaim, tree of life. That's the ordinal value of all these 3 spellings out of secret to the first spelling plus the ordinal of secret. Add them together, come to 303, which is Eitz Chaim, the regular and ordinal of Eitz Chaim. And then you've got this. After these incidents, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, your reward is exceedingly great. 15:1. Okay. So, Anochi Mogen Loch, Lecha, I am a shield for you. I did a lesson on this recently. It's beautiful, beautiful gematria. Wonderful, wonderful inspiration. These are the 3 letters of the, I did a lot of teaching about the Aleph, well, it's actually Aleph, Lam, Mim, these mysterious letters to be found in Islam that are really pointing to a revelation of Mashiach, Moshe, Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. Okay, and I spoke a lot about that. This too has got a gematria as 89, which is the same as gematria as evil inclination, YHWH. These 2 add together to equal 313, which is the regular and ordinal of Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. This is tree of life, Eitz Chaim. This is Eitz HaChaim, the regular and ordinal of the tree of life. If we add that together with a Mispah Gadol, regular and ordinal, it comes to 1779 up here. So we know this union between the 3 aspects of Mashiach is connected to the inner secret dimension of the Torah. Okay, it's all powerful stuff. Bearing in mind, we've got to be formed front and back. We saw that, didn't we, in the gematria? He formed me front and back. Let's just have a quick read of this concept of the evil inclination as found in Talmud. It says, when they saw that the evil inclination for idol worship was delivered into their hands as for sin in the area of sexual relationships. It says, when they saw that the evil inclination for idol worship was delivered into their hands as they requested, the sages said, since it is an auspicious time, let us pray also concerning the evil inclination for sin in the area of sexual relationship. They prayed, and it was also delivered into their hands. Zechariah the prophet said to them, see and understand that if you kill this evil inclination, the world will be destroyed, because as a result there will be no longer any desire to procreate. They followed his warning, and instead of killing an evil inclination, they imprisoned it for 3 days. Bearing in mind, he's got to go 3 days and 3 nights. There's all kinds of mystery involved in that about Yeshua, but anyway. At that time, people searched for a fresh egg throughout all of Eretz Yisrael and could not find one. Since the inclination to reproduce was quashed, the chickens stopped laying eggs. They said, what should we do? If we kill it, the world will be destroyed. If we pray for half, i.e. that only half its power be annulled, nothing will be achieved, because heaven does not grant half gifts, only whole gifts. What did they do? They gouged out its eyes, effectively limiting its powers, and set it free. And this was effective to the extent that a person is no longer aroused to commit incest with the close relatives. We used... Okay. Right, sorry, there's it's picked up something there that it shouldn't have done. There's a big secret hidden in there, isn't there? Because what did they do to Yeshua? They took his ayin away, and ayin means eye. They cursed him with the name Yeshu. It's all part of it. Okay, because he had to go in and subdue the evil inclination to the side of holy. And one of the ways in which he was sold into that was by calling him Yeshu. So that was just one of the things that happened. And, you know, it's one of the ways that causes the whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef to descend into Edomite dominion. And there's a lot to be learned from that, but he's only in temporarily until we subdue all those forces of the evil inclination to the side of holy. You can't completely do away with the evil inclination. It serves a purpose, and as we can see, we're formed front and back. Sometimes we need a little bit of a push from behind. It happened to me very recently, not very recently, but going back a few months now. Something happened, and I could straight away, I knew it was the evil inclination, but at the same time I felt like it's just giving you a push from behind to remind you that in this world we're not to kill the entire evil inclination. We've just got to subdue it in somewhere. We've got to get it to work for us, for the side of holy. We've got to allow this to instead of allow this force to dominate over us and in very chaotic, lustful, evil ways, we've got to subdue it and find a holy expression for this inclination, and to get it behind and serving what's really up front, which is our will to serve Yud Hei Vav Hei and to do that we're supposed to be doing, to create a home for him down on earth as it is in heaven, to bring about that whole Shalom bayith. You know, in the macrocosmic way and in the microcosmic aspect of our life and the macrocosmic way. Okay, we've all got a job to do. We can't just kill it 100%. It's got a purpose. We've got to create vessels of Shalom out of it. Shalom, so that Yud Hei Vav Hei can dwell with us on earth as it is in heaven. And it's the vessels of Shalom that we get from Esav, which is subduing our evil inclination, that bring that about. So loads of wonderful wisdom in all that. No wonder I struggle to get this out. However, subscribe, because we're going to come up with some more wonderful concepts in the next lesson. Things about cognitive dissonance. There's all kinds of obstacles that we face. You know the devil, you know Hasatan, you know the whole concept of the lies and the false messiah and the evil inclination. It comes in so many different forms that create, you know, chaos in our minds. We're living in very chaotic times. We're living in times where there's a lot of conflict, and we need to subdue that conflict down, and we need to overcome and overpower it. So we've got Shalom in our minds and in our bodies. Okay, and with that I will say Shalom. Please share and subscribe.